Actors, do you want to know how to set yourself up so you can comfortably afford to say no to a job you're not comfortable with? Producers, how do you treat your actors so that they'll jump at the chance to work with you again? We'll talk about these things today and a whole lot more. But first, if you're finding this podcast helpful, take a moment to follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you think others would be interested in listening, please rate and review to make it easier for others to find. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or podchaser.com.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Your hosts, Geoffrey and Jaclyn Whitt.
You're listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. Jeff and I are speaking with Mark Christopher Lawrence today. This is the second portion of the interview. And I want to start by getting into now, you are actually starting to produce movies. Is it movies or television?
Well, we're doing a bit of both, film and TV and some live events. I've been producing live events for years, like live stand-up. I've produced at 4 different theaters right now, live comedy. I've produced 2 DVDs back in the day, Shout, gospel comedy, even a gospel comedy. Mm-hmm. And now I'm partnering with some friends and we're doing some live stuff. We'll do a huge pay-per-view comedy special. And then we're doing like an MMA thing and we're doing some film and TV. Like right now we have 4 films that we acquired that we're aggregating. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we're producing some of our own content, which actually 2 of the films that we have in the can already are ours.
Nice.
But we have some film and TV stuff that we want to produce ground up. Okay.
So curious, do you have narratives included in that or is it more events based?
No, those are scripted films and television shows. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this a while. So then I can ask you this question. What has changed? Like for people that maybe did it 10 or more years ago, is there a different approach today, if I may say post-COVID? Because a lot of things changed during that time and brought out a lot of new technology. Did it change that part of the industry as well, as far as how to approach producing not only the events, but the films?
I think the thing that has changed is that there are more outlets now. So let's say you produce a film and back in the old days, there were only a few places you could go with it. And now there are so many more outlets. It's kind of a situation where, you just got to find the right fit for your project to figure out where it goes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think that's changed. The number of outlets has really opened the door, especially to new filmmakers.
And so what narratives are you working on and what are those storylines like, if you're able to share?
Probably can't talk about them right now.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
That was sort of shooting. I will tell you that we have one film that's sort of about my life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the one that I like the best. And I have a very small role in it, but it's going to be a good film.
Interesting. Yeah. I'd like to see that. That'd be fun.
Let's talk for a moment. Let's get into Sleeper Agent. And you've worked with Leland Clausen a bit. Like you said, you're looking at perhaps a second edition, Sleeper Agent 2. Tell us a bit about that experience. It looks like it was fun.
Well, Leland called me and said that he was doing this film and wanted me to be in it. And once I read it, I was like, oh, this is hilarious. Yeah, I love it too. And it just happens that Matt Falk, our chemistry together was really good. And Leland was great to work with. And I think it was his first film. And he was like a sponge. It's like I give him a couple of tips and he'd pick it up. But he's so graceful and giving and kind and just, really, I'm really looking forward to working with him again.
Yeah, when the 3 of you were in a scene together, it was like magic. It was hilarious. The timing, everything was just so on point. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoy the give and take in that way. It's like, and some actors, don't have that give and take. I remember years ago, we were producing a film and we had to recast one of the characters because we had done a short. And the ITC Entertainment Group didn't really care for the guy that was playing the other character. So we had to recast and we did a lot of auditions. And a couple of guys just didn't have that give and take. It's like they would just sort of steamroll and they can understand, the pull back and go forward. And so, yeah, it's a skill. And I don't know that you can teach that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Timing is one of those things, almost like a dance. You have to feel that and sense with the other person. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
You mentioned that was the first time you worked with Leland. Was that also the first time?
Well, I worked with him stand-up, but not film and television. Yeah.
Yeah. So you worked with Nathan there as well. Whether that was the first time, I don't know. But obviously you worked with him more in Fragment Oblivion.
Yes. Nathan, that was my first time working with Nathan. And then he called me about Fragment Oblivion. And he sent me what they had shot during the quarantine, which was, I guess, like part one of what Fragment Oblivion became. And it was really interesting to me, and I liked it. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Cool.
Nice.
I'm curious, obviously throughout your career, you've worked on quite a variety of sets and projects, from major studio films and sets to what we've just been talking about, what would have been some smaller independent films and faith-based films. Tell us about your experience with the variety of projects.
Well, it's interesting in that some of the major ones, it's like they really take care of you. It's like you get to set and they want to make sure that you're good, you got everything you need, da-da-da-da. And then sometimes it's like you work on these smaller ones where really I'm doing you a favor. Because it's not like you're paying me enough to make this make sense.
Right.
And sometimes those smaller sets have been, not user-friendly. It's like, I think if you're not paying me what I get, then you should probably treat me better.
Interesting. So what are some things that would help a smaller set to treat their actors well?
Creature comforts. I mean, if we have a 12-hour day, then part of your budget should be a decent lunch, a really good lunch, because it helps keep morale on set. Yeah. And I've been on projects where lunch was not good. And it's like, in fact, there was one project that comes to mind, I won't mention it, that me and another actor, we would figure out where we were shooting that day. And when we broke for lunch, we just go find food because the food wasn't good. And then, just the way, you talk to somebody, I think is important. Like I worked on a big film. My first film was Caddyshack 2, and Jackie Mason played the lead in that because they couldn't get Rodney Dangerfield. There was a big lawsuit going on, and they treated Jackie so terribly. And I remember noticing that. And when Chevy Chase came, it's like it was just like hugs and kisses, right? And they were treating Jackie badly. And I think part of it was, they didn't like his acting style or whatever it was. But, this is who you hire.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You should probably help him do his job. And so fast forward to Bringing Back Christmas, the film that we did. They started the day with prayer. If you were there, everybody would circle up and pray. And then they get through the day. And the attitudes and the professionalism and the creature comforts, was just on point. It's like they got it and they really took care of you. We shot me out of that whole film in, I think, 16 days. And it was record-breaking heat in Texas. And after every take, there was a young lady standing there with a towel for my neck and electrolytes. And it was just one of those situations where I felt so taken care of, that if they ever asked me to do anything else again, yes.
Right. Yeah.
And that started at the top, just step by step. Every aspect of production was that way. They were really mindful of taking care of people.
That's a good word, mindful, because even just thinking about okay, so not only is it hot, but what will my actors need in order to continue to do the day well? Yeah.
Right.
What are some things that you learned at any point, whether it was acting or producing or stand-up, whichever? What are some things that you learned that maybe it took you a while to learn, but once you got it, you were like, oh, this makes a difference for me that maybe other people can benefit from if they can learn it faster?
I'm a very quick study. It's like I learn things very fast. And, as an actor, it's like the way I approach the job is acting 101. I ask myself the question, what do I want, as the character? And I play that. And I think a lot of times you see actors playing emotions. Okay, this scene I gotta cry. So they don't really hit the need in the scene. They just hit the cry. Okay, I got tears out, but there was nothing else underneath it.
Right.
So I think from an acting standpoint, that part is the most important part, to be able to add layers to your character and not play emotions. If you play your want, if you play your desire, then the emotions are the byproduct of you either getting or not getting what you need.
That makes sense.
And I think that's where the audience can see it too, where there are times where I'm watching something and I can say, wow, like the acting, it's so believable, that you forget that they're acting, right? And that's because of that authenticity that they bring to it, where it's not just going through the motions and the emotions, but you actually believe that almost that they actually are this person. Like you can really settle into that. And yeah, that's amazing.
I'll tell you, before I became an actor, John Lithgow, in terms of endearment, really stood out to me in that film. It's like, wow, he is so good. It was a very small role, but I believed every moment of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the job. As an actor, that's the job.
Mm-hmm.
As a producer, I think the thing that I've learned recently is that not everybody that you're trying to work with is a good person to work with.
Right.
So vet the people that you're working with.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. I guess in some scenarios, like you can just, they work with you, you pay them, they move on, and and you're like, okay, well, maybe not next time.
Mm-hmm.
But then, when you're getting into partnerships with people where you're building something that is moving in a direction that's going to be longer term, yeah, definitely, you got to be equally yoked in as many areas as possible. Do you have any advice for people as far as vetting goes? How would you do that?
Well, the first thing you do is you talk to people that know the person and that has worked with them, and where there's overlap in your life and their life, and see if they've worked with them, what that experience was like. Are they on time? Are they the type of person that gets things done? Because sometimes I think one thing that holds you up is when somebody's not doing their part. It's like, okay, you're responsible for this, but you didn't get it done, and now we're behind the eight ball.
Yeah, that can cost a lot of money and aggravation, definitely.
Yeah, and it can shut a production down if you don't get things done. You're stuck.
Any other advice, like things that you've learned, things that you've picked up along the way?
I think the best advice I got on a film was from Earl Bowen, rest in peace. He was the doctor in the Terminator movies. And he said to me, he says, Mark, and this was back, way back in the day. He said, look, get another bank account, way across town. Don't take the ATM card. If they send it to you, just cut it up. He says, make it hard to get to, and take 10% of every bit of money you make and stick it in that bank account. He says, and then when you get offered a job that you don't want to do, that you feel like it's beneath you, you have some money in the bank to be able to say no. It builds up very fast. You won't even miss it. It was probably at that time the best advice I'd ever got.
Wow. So obviously you took that advice.
I took that advice.
That's the type of advice that's easy for many people to hear and not actually do.
Right. Right. And for me, at the time, I was doing a lot of commercials. And so that really came in handy when I really needed it. Like that first commercial strike, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I have this money over here that I've just been leaving alone. I can use this.
Right.
Great advice.
Yeah. And I like it also because when you were saying that it gives you the freedom to have choice. I mean, obviously you have choice anyways. You can always say no to a role if it's not something that you want to do. But knowing that you have that money set aside so that you have that freedom and you can breathe easier, knowing that saying no doesn't mean that you don't have money.
Right. I worked with Della Reese on Touched by an Angel, and she did this movie with Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor and Red Fox, these big names, funny guys, and her character was a madam. And, she cursed a lot, and Della Reese was a minister. And so I asked her, I said, just watch Harlem Nights for like the 20th time. It's like, it cracks me up. There's so many funny little things in it. I said, did you, as a minister, get pushback from people because you're a Christian and that language? And she says, you're asking me because you're wondering if you should take a job or not. She says, God opens doors for you because sometimes he's trying to reach somebody. And whether you know it or not, people are watching you. So if you say you're a Christian and you're acting a certain way on set, there's eyes on you. She said, so although they had me cursing like a sailor, she says, God opened that door for a reason. So when you go to work, she says, don't turn your jobs down because you think somebody else is going to have a problem with what you're saying or doing. She says, because there may be somebody on that set that God needs to talk to, and he's using you to do it. She says, so take your job and then let God's love and light and grace flow through you so that God can do his work. And I was like, okay. Like in my career, I've turned down only 2 jobs because I don't think I'm in a position where I can really turn down a job. You know what I mean? I have to take the job. But there were 2 jobs that I turned down. It was right after I did a movie called Fear of a Black Hat where I played a rapper. And the first one was a cigarette commercial. And I knew at that time it was just young people listening to rap music. I said, so they're selling cigarettes to kids. So I told my agents I passed. And then there was another similar situation. And, both times I just passed. I was like, hey, I don't feel right about selling cigarettes to kids. I don't smoke. It bugged me that my mom smokes when I was a kid. And so I turned those 2 jobs down. And that was more of just me and the way I felt about cigarettes than anything else.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I guess the thing is, even though acting, you are being true to your character. At the end of the day, though, you're looking your own face in the mirror, right? So you still have to be true to yourself as far as the choices that you make. And that's good because being intentional as you're thinking things through, that you can decide, yeah, I'm going to take this job. And then in a different situation, you decide, no, I am not going to take this job, which means that you have, you are the one making the choices in your life and you're being intentional about those choices. So, right or wrong, they are yours. And you're not going to be a victim of circumstances or whatever. Like you're actually thinking through decisions. Right. And I think that's a big part of life because I think it's easy sometimes to just kind of roll with whatever comes and not really think about it much. So I appreciate that you're thinking it through, and the fact that you set that money aside shows that you know that you always have the option. So that's great.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that Della said that really stuck with me was that if somebody is opposed to something that you say in a film as a character, that's their problem, not yours.
It was the character and the writer.
Right.
It's the same for quotes.
Yeah.
I see it all the time where people will have like a meme and they'll have a quote of something from a movie that a character said, and then they credit the character. And I'm like, you realize you should be crediting the writer, right? Like, who actually wrote that line? It was not the character. The character is, it's fictitious.
Right. Pretty funny.
Tell people where they can find your comedy special, because that's good stuff.
My comedy special, Marcus for Lawrence Clean Out of Compton, is on Dry Bar. Go and watch it. Go to my website, watch the clips, whatever. I think I was really happy with it at the time.
Good.
And now when I look back at it, there's one bit that I do on there that had just happened in real life. So it's not as funny as it is now. It's like the way I tell it now is much better than I did that night.
You've had time to work it out?
Yeah, it got a big laugh that night. But now the way I tell the story, it's so much better. And it's the bit about killing the guy. During my act, this guy dies in real life. And there were 4 doctors there and they resuscitated him. He woke up giggling. So this is comedy gold.
Yeah, for sure.
But after it happened, it's like the guy that hired me, he goes, "You think we should bring him back over and you go up and finish your set?" I said, "No, I'm not following the dead guy. Let's leave him wanting more."
Yeah.
So what do you want me to murder the whole audience?
Oh, that's funny.
Good stuff.
Take a look for that comedy special. And your website again?
MarkChristopherLawrence.com.
Oh, that's easy.
Awesome.
We'll put it in the show notes, and I'll look forward to taking a look at it myself.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. Thank you.
I've enjoyed getting to know you and hearing your advice. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate y'all.
Take care. God bless.
All right. God bless. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. If you would like email reminders about newly released episodes and more, please sign up at fafpodcast.com/email. That's FAFFpodcast.com/email. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.
That's a wrap.